you touched on an important point earlier about these guys kept going back. And I think one of the most maddening things about Prince Andrew's story is not only did he keep going back, he went back after Jeffrey had his first conviction, and his security detail would have briefed him about that, and he would have overrode their advice to go back. So my question for you, Barbara, is did you ever see, or were you ever aware of royalty at any of these parties?
Oh yeah, Prince Andrew was two of my friends that were models. He was paying for their apartment in New York. They were 20, 21 years old. Yeah, they were sleeping with him. Eastern European. Because I asked them, how did you get this apartment? Because I paid for my apartment. I bought my apartment. I lived next door to Chelsea Clinton was my next door neighbor. How come these girls have very expensive buildings and they're not working? And I was making $1 million a year, and they have better apartments than I do. Why is that? Because he was supplying their apartments, paying for he was at Epstein's. I've seen him there.
Oh, someone call Paula M.
He was
so
there.
You got the allegations by Virginia that Andrew paid a huge settlement for, but to this day he's denying even knowing her and saying that the photo of his arm around her is fake, or he doesn't remember it. Do you think that's preposterous?
Preposterous. If he was paying for those two models, how many other models was he paying for? Yeah. Check their bank.
You mentioned him paying for models that were from Eastern Europe then, and the second procurer in charge after Ghislaine Maxwell was Jean-Luc Brunel, who had his own modeling agency.
Yep.
Did you hear about him at the time?
Yeah, he was my agent.
Wow.
when I was with Elite Models.
Wow.
I know Jean-Luc. I know Jean-Luc very well. He knows me too.
Yeah, and so you're suspicious about how he died? Exactly the same method as Jeffrey?
I think maybe they just probably killed him to shut him up.
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
He's nothing. He's just garbage. He's just he's a nothing. Like, so they opened up an agency together. Epstein invested into MC2 Models, and I know a lot of the girls that were with that agency, and I think maybe both of them were with Prince Andrew.
And did you get bad vibes from Jean-Luc, or was he a normal person?
No, he's disgusting. We all knew it. They would give the models bags of cocaine to stay skinny. So they would, work and stay skinny.
And what other stories did you hear about him? I mean, you can say anything you want because he's
okay. So Jean-Luc was a big predator. Jean-Luc would get all the Eastern European girls. He would pimp them out to all the CEOs of all the name brands. He would take them on trips, pay for them for their fashion, for their outfits. He would get them apartments. They had a model's apartment that they would all stay in, 10 women in one apartment, all crammed in. It was actually disgusting. And so I was looking into starting my own agency, my own modeling agency. I asked two of my agents in London to invest with me, and they said, Barbara, you're very ballsy for starting this. I said, I could take all the Eastern European girls and I can make them rich by working. And I said, these women are being trafficked. I know they are being trafficked by these men. So I was planning to start my own modeling agency and help save these girls, because they would tell me in our language what was going on.
So one of the allegations that Virginia made that's not picked up very readily by mainstream media was the allegation of what happened on the island, whereby there was a sex party involving Prince Andrew, Jean-Luc Brunel, Maxwell, Epstein, and a bunch of East European girls, and that Jean-Luc and Epstein and Andrew were joking they were the easiest ones to do these things to because they didn't speak any English.
I know. It's true. I mean, look, can you imagine taking your models from your agency, whipping them down on your jet straight to the island, giving them some cocktails? Oh, hello, welcome to the, you get a cocktail and you have your beautiful Chanel bag and you could stay all weekend. Then they drug you and you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so what you're saying really corroborates what Virginia said.
Yeah. That's what they do. That's why they open the agency, so they're not traced, because they're in a modeling agency. So the girls, they get them visas. They get the girls visas. They're not accounted for. They're
Which,
missing.
which was my next question. The pipeline Jean-Luc Brunel had bringing the girls in from East Europe, their visas were fast tracked through their connections at the government.
Yes, and I have to get visas to work in Europe, and that's also fast tracked. They have connections. It's very connected. It's very interconnected. These women are not accounted for. Look, what are you going to do? Go to the parents in Ukraine and Kiev and say, oh, where is your daughter? I don't know. She was modeling and somehow she disappeared. That's it. You're over. You're done. You're toast. And Jean-Luc does not care. He doesn't care. He's Epstein's pimp for the models. He's Epstein's pimp.
Barbara, did you actually hear of girls who disappeared or OD'd or anything like that?
So there was a girl, she was Eastern European. She jumped out of a building in New York. She jumped out of a building because of the shame she felt. I know a lot of girls that go missing all the time. We always heard girls missing. We haven't even gotten into the boys yet.
So there's another character I want to get to then that was above Brunel, and that is Wexner, who owned the Limited, Victoria's Secrets, etc. Did you guys hear about Wexner during those days?
Oh, yes. What do you mean? He's the head boss. He's the boss of the whole fashion industry. If you get in with Victoria's Secret, you're in with Banana Republic. You're in with Express. You're in with Bath and Body Works. Those are all big jobs. And once you're in, because I was in with Victoria's Secret, so I worked with Express and all these big names. If I become a problem, I start becoming a problem, they won't book me anymore. So a lot of these girls, they would say, oh, you could be a model like her and work for Victoria's Secret. You want to come on my island? That's what they do.
So researchers like Ryan Dawson and Whitney Webb have alleged that Wexner was involved with intelligence, Israeli intelligence, the Mossad, the CIA, and the mafia as well. Would that kind of thing have been kept secret from you, or would you have heard rumors of things like that?
Well, the rumor that I heard about Lex Wexner is that he's a big dog. You don't want to piss him off. You don't want to be on the bad side. You don't want to cause problems. We knew that somehow he and Epstein were friends, but we didn't know why or how. And so we knew that Jeffrey had some sort of connection to him, but we didn't know how. We just knew that you have to like kiss their ass. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to cause problems. You don't want to create any type of divide. You don't want to kiss and tell. You know who these big dogs are. You know that they have a higher up in the industry. And the agencies know this too. They work with them. Jeffrey Epstein would call my agency to get set up on dates with the models.
Yeah, Wexner was the person I was referring to earlier on when Maria Farmer told us she was at the property and things happened to her and she called the cops and the cops were like, hey, we're already out there guarding the property. There's nothing we can do for you. And she was just trapped in the Wexner property. But it seems that he's at this level whereby he's so wealthy, he's in this untouchable class of people with Bill Clinton, etc., where nothing ever happens to these people.
I think it's so intertwined, and it's so affiliated with politics. It is much bigger than we can ever imagine. This is maybe just the surface. I'm trying to connect the dots to the bigger, to who's above them. Who is making these orders? Who is telling these agencies to get these models to come to the parties? Why? What is the reason? Why do they want to blackmail all these people? There's a
Well,
bigger picture.
yeah, we interviewed Ari Ben Menashe, who was former Israeli military intelligence, and he said that Israel was one of the prime movers behind the Epstein operation. It would involve the CIA as well, and that the Wexner property. You asked about Jeffries' relationship with Wexner, and people wonder where Jeffries' wealth came from. Well, the property in New York was given to him by Wexner. It had the cameras pre-fitted. And we've spoke to survivors who, one survivor, one of the Epstein properties, ended up in the control room looking at all of the screens where all these videos were getting recorded. But what Ari Ben Menashe said was they were looking to have leverage over the titans of industry, politicians, royal family members. Prince Andrew was a big catch for them. And these honey trap operations, have been around for decades. And they continue to this day, and that's what Ari told us the motive was.
You know what it also is. This is really sad to me, because if you take like a man, okay, let's say Prince Andrew, right? Okay, he's kind of like probably like he likes young girls, has sex, but then you just kind of like you make it to where they can do those things. It's kind of like a fantasy, and you represent it to them, and you say, look, you could come on this island, you can have all the women and this and that. I mean, they're literally blackmailing you, and you fall for it. You're an idiot. You're stupid. But they make it so big and so normal that it's like if you don't participate, you don't get funded. You just don't get funded. And just like a person like myself, I could have been a big actress. I could have been a supermodel. Yeah, I could have. But I just didn't take those steps because I knew what it would involve. I knew that I would have to be their forever slave. If I did those things, I could be kicked out as soon as I'm 30 years old. I'm washed up and old. It's over. My time is done. They're going to go to the next one. And then you have to live with that for the rest of your life, you know?
Yeah,
And
Julia.
especially, and I like those, and especially men, like, okay, like what Diddy did to these actors. Like, you take somebody like Ashton Kutcher. We know he was at the parties. We've seen him. We've seen him in the videos. Maybe he was blackmailed one time, and then maybe he ended up liking it and kept going. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a model, I was in that crossroad, in that pivotal crossroad, where I had to make the decision: am I going to be staying a good person, or am I going to, go move forward ahead and be not sleep at night? I want to sleep at night.